And talking about adding value, we can speak about interns, summer interns. So as we know, this is summer internships have been more and more in demand through the years because obviously it presents a very concrete chance to land a graduate offer afterwards. And I think I've seen some stats from this year from Goldman Sachs. They had around 300,000 applications. And in the end, they have taken, I think it was 1,000 or 1,500 people. So it's also super selective, but we can understand why. So yeah, it's 10 weeks during the summer. I guess you guys have that in your firm as well. If we start at the beginning, somebody wants to be a summer intern in a firm, investment bank or hedge fund or else. They have not had any experience so far, any work experience. So they have this issue of chicken and egg problem. Which one comes first, the experience or the role? What should they put in their CV in order to be attractive and in order to be called for subsequent interviews?
So I would say that the starting point, and this one is kind of difficult to change for a given student, is the more selective and prestigious and sought after university you are at, the higher chances of getting your interviews. And this is not unfair. This is just, well, the banks have they need a way to filter out CVs. And one way is to look at the top institutions because they think that there is at least a partial overlap between your aptitudes to land a top university and your aptitude on the job.
Yeah.
This overlap is very far from perfect, but it still exists. It's not zero.
And it's probably one of the best overlaps, I would say.
There might be others. Unfortunately, the ways to discover these other areas of overlap are extremely expensive. So you could maybe organize giant mathematical trading games for all candidates and see how it works for 2 weeks. That would probably give better results than interviews. But this is what the summer internship is for.
Yeah.
You know, because the bank only has capacity to do these games or like this real life assessment for, as you mentioned, like 1K applicants over the worldwide. This is the capacity, the economical capacity, willingness of the bank to do a real life process. Before that, they have to filter somehow. So, and people are always going to complain about the process. The process is inherently a bit unfair, a bit fair, a bit unfair. It can be like some new AI interview process where you're just talking to a screen. There's no human. The AI decided you're not fit for whatever reason. This just feels bizarre, but it's
coming.
This is probably coming, as you said. It's if it's not already there. It can be you sent your CV is actually top notch. It's just somehow nobody called you. If your CV is really top notch, this is a bit unlikely. If you apply to 15 banks, hedge funds, whatever, even you might not get all of them, but you're gonna get some of them.
Yeah.
The blank CV is always a bit hard. It adds an extra layer. So I would say if you're not like particularly stellar in the top institution, if you have zero internship, it tends to be harder to then land a top internship. So you can start a bit, let's say you are in a good university, you're having good grades, then maybe broaden a bit and start with a maybe less difficult to get internship. And then you can build from there. Once you have some experience, then that experience tends to help you get interviews for a subsequent internship or for another summer internship. So people go through, some people are lucky enough or maybe good enough to go the direct way immediately. But if you're not, it's not a reason to be discouraged. Obviously, you need to also be realistic at some point. You cannot just only want to work at Citadel if you are at a mid-tier university with 3 out of 5 GPA or something, whatever. That doesn't make sense. You're just not going to get there. But there is a part of hustle in the whole process.
Yeah.
And actually that's also like, it's liked by hiring manager to see someone who really wants to do the job.
Yeah.
Because you have that for you. So when you're hiring people from absolute top universities with top grades, you know they're likely very smart.
Yeah.
but you didn't assess yet their hunger for the job. And some of them are actually end up not being very hungry. They just end up in the summer internship, and you don't really know why they're here. Even if they're very smart and probably capable, but they just don't happen to want, and they can almost got the internship too easily. So it's a bit of a unfair process, but you have to try to play your cards the best way you can.
Yeah.
You have to maybe try networking the same way as you do it at a more senior level. You can do it at the intern level.
Yeah.
You try to have a little call with someone, get advice. Maybe he will help you just get through the CV filter.
LinkedIn as well, maybe LinkedIn.
If you know someone at a given bank, you can, again, get advice, maybe talk to them a little bit, and they might just vouch for you just to get the first step, which is just to pass the filter of the CV filter. Once you pass the CV filter in interviews, then it's, well, the ball is in your court now.
Yeah.
There's no more
It's
unluckily filtered out by the system.
Yeah.
You're going to get 2 face-to-face, usually, interviews as a first round with more junior individuals. It's now with a lot of, call it, experience in this process, a lot of people who get to the first stage of the interview are really badly prepared. So the competition is actually not that strong at these, first interviews. And it might sound a bit surprising, but it's true. And even at the later stage of the interviews, sometimes you actually only have 2 or 3 candidates which you actually think could even qualify. So being prepared is obviously huge.
Yeah.
And as we discussed before, if you're someone maybe your CV doesn't tend to go easily through the HR filter or through whatever filter there is, it's not a reason to not be prepared. Because once your luck comes, you're not prepared, you're going to just regret it for a while.
Yeah.
That finally, you got rejected from almost everyone, and now one of the top institutions, for whatever reason, you happen to pique the interest of someone who gave you a chance, and now you come and you just basically blow it.
Because you are still emotionally struck from the interviews.
You're still angry. Oh, I didn't get selected for the past 3 processes. Why is it even worse? Working so much to learn these new things. I'm not gonna get it anyway. So yeah, that's
a lot of self-defeating arguments.
Yes.
And actually, I've seen some stats also on Reddit with some people who are talking about each person would come and they would give some statistics about their own experience with applying to internships. How many of them got called? How many led to interviews? And these people were generally from, let's say, some tier 1, but some also tier 2 universities. And it was quite striking, the statistics, because the guy would apply to, let's say, 150 roles, and he would get called for 4. And only in one of them he would pass the first round, then he would get it. So it's basically 1 out of 150. I think that the odds are quite competitive nowadays.
No, it's true. So, I mean, I can even talk about my own case. So, I was in one of the top institutions, so I didn't have universities. I didn't have the problem of, let's say, having to deal with my university not being recognized or anything. I was clearly a target. But even then, like when applying online, especially without experience, it wasn't like a walk in the park, like they say. Out of 12 whatever banks, and I actually had a small internship, my first one that I mentioned before, where I had met a guy who just gave me a chance through a forum, and then I passed some interviews and got there. So I already had this internship under my belt, and I still didn't get a lot of interviews for the subsequent year, where I was trying to actually just apply online like everyone would do. And I ended up getting 3
and interviews or 3 offers?
3 interviews.
Oh, okay.
3 interviews, and that's a combination of me being not particularly early in the process. That's also a thing. Like the more early you apply, the more like diligent with following up with all the questions, all the requirements of every given institution. It can be a bit daunting. Like everyone has his own little requirement. This one wants the cover letter this way. This one wants a video recording. This one wants a CV, but that is not more than X characters. This one, it's just like a massive drag on time. And often you tend to not do it seriously. And reality, I only got 3. And luckily, I guess, or because I actually was prepared, so maybe not so luckily, I got the first one that went to completion, and I dropped the others because the first one I got was actually, in my eyes, better than the 2 others. And I'm still there, like 12 years later. So had I got discouraged, I would not have been called to the 3. And then if I was not prepared, I would have failed at this. And then I would have been on Reddit complaining that I didn't get
Just in your statistics.
exactly. So there is an element of luck, but you need to be prepared. Always. Like I still remember, for example, to give during my assessment center. So when you do a summer internship, you have first stage, you talk to a few people, 1, 2 juniors, and then usually you have another step, which is called assessment center, where you go through 3, 4 interviews with more senior people, and you also have other things like group exercises, like some various tasks. But one of them, at least at the specific institution where I ended up interning, one of the first tasks of the day was redoing the exact same numerical test you did online. And 3 candidates got kicked at that stage. So they came for the assessment center after having done 2 interviews in person and having cleared the filter, and somehow they just failed this. So either they cheated, or they would just like forgot to keep prepared. Maybe they just got it a little bit above the bar on the online version. Maybe because in the online version you can keep training several times. They managed to get through, but then they didn't think to actually keep on top of things. And so that's this is a stupid way to get to lose your slot.
Get wrecked.
So it's a combination, obviously, of a bit of luck, a bit of perseverance, and being prepared when the opportunity comes.
So the road is quite daunting and full of obstacles, super competitive as well. You have all these top tier universities, students applying, nobody has really any experience. Even with that, you need to differentiate yourself somehow. So you got through the first filter, calling you for interviews, you succeed in the interviews. Not everybody is actually that competent from what you said. Some people are not that good. Some people are. Then you actually land the internships. Here we are. You are at the summer internship. You are finally given the chance to perform and to show what you are made of and prove yourself valuable for the team in order to get and secure a full-time role. Now, we have touched on this a little bit earlier, talking about you need to be likable. You need to always seek to provide value for the team. Are there any other elements that you would look for in an intern which would make you think this guy or this girl, very important for us, we would like to keep him to stay with us?
So I think one or 2 elements that most interns kind of tend to know they need to do is, because they get told, is what you just said. Try to be valuable for the desk, try to help out, try to do whatever you can. And obviously most interns are actually incapable to add any sort of tangible value. And this is not me like taking, dig at them or like trying to just make fun of them or anything. It's normal. Like you had just started, you kind of have some basic knowledge maybe or not. Like if you didn't actually study finance really. So you're not expected to really be able to add a lot of value. Maybe if you know coding, you can maybe help with some small tools. But even then, summer internship, you have 3 weeks rotations across multiple desks. You're not going to be able to add any sort of big value. But most interns actually try. So they try to do something. The places where interns tend to, I would say, fail a bit. So one is they actually get too stuck on focusing on some random project that they got. So they get a small project because every intern gets a project to be doing something, and then they just disappear and they only do the project. They don't talk to people. They don't get to know different traders or salespersons, whatever team they're assigned to. They maybe talk to a single person who is managing that project, and then after 3 weeks, nobody really knows these interns. So yeah, they have an okay project. As I said, the project is not really critical. It was more like a test than anything.
Yeah.
And so they kind of basically just miss the point of the internship. So they kind of just run through the internship thinking they're doing well, but they're actually not at all.
Yeah.
The second bit is a different type of interns. And this is a bit surprising all the time to me, but this just goes to show that the social skills are not really taught at university.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you need to think about, like how you do behave in a corporate environment. Like the office is not university. And what I mean by that is two things. First, there's obviously the actual behavior. Like you need to be more professional. You need to be dressed appropriately, especially as an intern.
What does that look like? What's the dress code needed?
I mean, the usual dress code, like, is nothing super strict, especially post-COVID. It's not extremely strict. Obviously, when you're an intern, you want to put the best foot forward, so you just put on a suit. If you're a man and if you're a woman, you just put on a normal kind of attire, of professional attire. You try to have a clean looking dressing code, so that it's not a plus. You just want it to not be a minus.
Yeah.
You don't, basically this dress code issue, sometimes people think about it too much, but the reality, you just need to not be the guy or the lady who's talked about because you have some weird dress code. You just want to be actually not talked about at all regarding this issue. If you're too fancy, you can start being talked about as well. So that there's no point, overdoing it. So just be like the most neutral possible, and so that people focus on your skills and what you have to add instead of some various irrelevant topics like the dress code.
Stay at the mean of the curve.
Exactly. Just be unnoticeable dress code wise.
Yeah.
The aspect I want to talk about when I said it's not university is there is this inversion of who has to add to give the value. So at university, you're just there and you're just like taking. Like everyone is expected to teach you stuff. When you kind of don't feel like doing something, the teacher is going to try to tell you off that you have to do something to do it. There is a deadline. You have to do this, to do that. You feel like the client. Maybe you even are the kind of a client because you're paying for university. Maybe you're not if it's a free one, but the setup remains that of you are a taker of information, and somehow all these people, because society deems it a good investment, are trying to teach you stuff, sometimes against your will almost, to make you a valid and good candidate for working in society later on. When you're an internship, there's an inversion of this. Like nobody is actually trying to teach you anything. They don't need you. These people are kind of fine without you, and they've been for the past I don't know how many years, and they will be after you leave the internship. They obviously want some new fresh talent, but they don't want you in particular. They just want some fresh talent, and if it just doesn't happen to be you, well then, I mean, they won't have an issue with that really. So it's for you to show that you want to be there. You will be given opportunities to do that because it's a structured program. It's not just like you just come and it's a Hunger Game. You just go around and try to do whatever you want. It's still reasonably structured, so you will have opportunities, but it's for you to take them. And so you need to show that you are willing to learn. You need to show that you are okay doing some maybe small tasks that you don't really like. You need to be willing to put on a smile and just be agreeable and normal human being. You need to also remember that these people are also human, the same way as I was mentioning that these very senior people are human. Well, everyone is human really. So, this guy looks like a senior trader that is very busy and it's difficult to talk to and he's stressed out and maybe he lost some money today, or we don't know. Maybe he just doesn't have time for you today. But it doesn't mean like very, very few people are actually just kind of mean for no reason.
Yeah.
You might unluckily bump into one of these, maybe, but the very, very vast majority is just normal people who can just be busy at some point. So ask. If they can't, come back later. Don't be like socially awkward about it.
Yeah.
Don't just stay behind them in some anxious way. Like that's don't be weird, basically.
Yeah.
Be professional. Be willing to learn. If there's an opportunity to make a small joke with them, like laugh about something, that's great. Just lightens the mood. But just remember that you're here to kind of try to contribute and show that you are very keen to do whatever role you want to do. It's not for them to convince you. And that's what I found is the thing that is mostly differentiating, on top of obviously the skill itself. Like, so you need to be realistic about your own competence, about the things, the desks where you can apply to, not apply to, and not fall into traps like going into the most popular desk because you heard that there is more P&L there last year and someone got a big pay. You know, all these stupid dynamics that not going to help you. The reason being that maybe that desk is the best, but he's not hiring this year.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's hiring, but well, he's hiring one person. And then you need to think, am I the best person for that role? If you're 9 interns trying to get hired into a single slot, well, only one is going to get something. Maybe 3, 4 are going to get a role at another desk because they actually hedged their bet a bit. They maybe didn't put all in on this one. And the rest will just be kind of failed internship again because they focus too much on a single top choice for which they are themselves not the top choice. So it's a game. It's again like, this is real world. So it's not university where you have given homeworks with given solutions that are known. You need to navigate the social environment. Everything is imperfect. Everything is different from year to year. The desks that are hiring, the desks that are looking to expand, the opportunity set that is available to you is a living thing. So you need to kind of navigate that and just basically make sure that you network with the right people, that you show that you're valuable, that you show that you're agreeable, that you show that you're motivated. And yeah, good luck. I mean, it is not, there is not a role for everyone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, there's no bulletproof recipe. I would say you can only get as prepared as you can. But as I said, and I can tell you now with the hindsight, there are a lot of bad interns. So
very critical information.
Yeah, it's not, as opposed to maybe what I used to think, maybe when I was an intern myself or was applying or this, when you tend to think, oh, the competition is absolutely crazy. It kind of is, but it's not at the same time. Meaning like due to the filtering mechanism, you have to eliminate a lot of candidates. But once you're actually there, you have a lot of candidates who are just very, very weak at some given point. And maybe they just went through the cracks. But for some reason, some interns, you don't even understand why they're there. So if you try to balance your profile, not leave any sort of big weak point, being big professional, being hardworking, network a bit, deliver good projects. If you just kind of have 1 or 2 where you're very strong and the rest you just try to not be
deficient.
Yeah, deficient. You have very good chances. Like some interns, they usually convert maybe half, if not more of them. So it's a very good shot at getting a job.
Yeah. It seems like the bread and butter of filtering and the competition really happens at the CV level, where we have the filtering done at the level of where do you come from, which university did you do, in that sense. And then when you have passed that first big barrier, then we see quite diverse.
And also, like that barrier is also a bit fake. Like these numbers you read, 3,000, 300,000 applicants. Like most of these applications, maybe this guy didn't put the required documents. Maybe this guy didn't really apply correctly.
Yeah.
Like I don't think like out of maybe stack of 30 CVs, maybe you give interviews to 5. So yes, it is filtering, but probably not as drastic as the the crazy numbers might lead you to. Maybe half or 2/3 of them are just invalid applications for whatever reason. Then the other half gets removed by HR because of something. And then the actual filtering is not actually as bad as it seems.
Yeah.
So don't get discouraged. My message.